and welcome to another episode of Misfits on Vinyl. My name is Spencer Streichert. I'm an actor, comedian, and one of your hosts.
My name is Aaron.
Aaron is also an actor.
And one of your hosts.
And one of the hosts.
Yeah. We're doing a double header. We just had a long one.
We just had a long one, so we're going to get right into it. Right off the bat, before we start talking, I feel like it's time we do this because we did a whole hour and a half long episode sober, and we did a few of those when I was taking a break before the tour, but it's much more fun to talk and drink. So from our official, non-official sponsor of the podcast, Cabin Brewing, we got Rhubarbation. Ooh.
It's a strawberry and rhubarb cobbler ale. I actually picked this one out. We were at Cabin yesterday, and Sam was like, pick out whatever you want. And I was like, I don't think we've had this on the podcast.
We have not, no. Let's cheers first.
Cheers to that, boys.
I just had to stop the steam from blowing over.
Steam? Ooh, it's hot.
Dude, it's only hot because it was in my hand.
It's underneath my ass cheeks.
Okay,
that's good.
So, that is really good. Great pick.
Thanks.
Great pick. Hey, Sam.
Yeah?
Good pick.
I didn't pick it. I made this shit.
Good job, Sam.
Good job, Sam.
Yes, I mean, I guess we kind of like caught everybody up on our last episode. I'm sure in the time being when this episode gets released, there'll be more to talk about on the episode following this one. But
yeah.
One thing we want to talk about again, we just want to give another shout out to the Vidos. They got their new acoustic album, Right in the Tookus.
Right in the Tookus.
It's all their stuff off of Right in the Kisser, but stripped down.
And I appreciate the fuck out of that album. Like both albums, honestly. I do. I've only listened to Right in the Tookus once, so I can't say which one I like better. I think the original is always going to be my heart. But this is, I was saying to you guys earlier, I think that this is one of the only examples I can think of where acoustic was done right, where it still had the same energy going, coming through. Because, a lot of bands will do an acoustic album, and you're just like Guns N' Roses will do acoustic, and you're like, fucking don't ruin.
Yeah, or like Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
They do like an acoustic track
or
something, like Everlong, and it's good, but
yeah. And there's a difference, too, between, like, if it's a live recording. Like a lot of my favorite performances have been on specifically Howard Stern when he's had bands or singers in there and they've done an acoustic version of some of their songs. Always a fucking banger. But this is like bangers cover to cover.
Yeah, they did a really great job. Yeah, I just want to give you guys a show. We talked a little bit at the end of the last episode. Just wanted to reiterate, listen to their stuff. They're a great band. They're a great Canadian band.
Yeah.
They're also great guys and friends of the podcast.
Listen to their episode with us.
Yeah.
Two episodes.
With
us.
Yeah. So shout out to them. They also did, like we always say, they do a fantastic job on our theme song. Catchiest fucking theme song of any podcast.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Hands fucking down.
Those guys rule.
And you know what? Take that, Toronto comedians that copied our format and made a podcast in the time that we were away.
I didn't know that.
Wait, actually?
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the comics is someone who follows me. It's slightly different.
Are we beefing?
It's no. I'm not gonna beef with them. I'm making a joke about it because theirs is a bit different. Like they each have completely different musical tastes, and so they each pick an artist to go into a deep dive of the history of. And so it's basically like taking one of our rec-episodes, but making that the entire series.
Well, anybody out there that thinks about doing a podcast, we're doing a podcast, so don't do it.
We're the only white guys who are doing podcasts.
We're the only white guys ever to do a podcast, so don't fucking copy us. Be original. Fucking do something different, Like, we actually invented the camera and the microphone, so don't even think about it.
Listen.
And beer.
Yeah, and beer.
Listen, you know what? I don't mean to sound like Howard Stern here, but I fucking created this.
Yeah.
Okay, before we actually get into anything, I do want to mention one thing. I don't have any dates on the books this summer yet because I was planning on not doing too much touring around the summer. So anybody in Calgary that wants to come to a show, I'll be posting about my shows in Calgary. I might do like a few outside of the city, but I'm mostly going to stick like around here.
Nice.
But you may be able to listen to me this summer on the Alberta-wide radio station CKUA as a fill-in host. So So that's exciting. I don't know what shows or what I'm going to be doing yet, but I applied for a job in one position, and they offered me a fill-in host position. So that was honestly probably better for me. But
I'm proud of you, buddy.
Why, thank you. It's almost like this podcast was the perfect training ground because I got to talk music.
Do that on the radio. That'll go well.
Yeah, I'm really selling myself on the professionalism right now. Guys, it's hard to do a podcast without drinking. Let me burp into the mic.
And if you guys weren't aware, we also created the radio. So
we did create the radio.
Yeah, there's no coming back.
There's a reason why my middle name is Radio.
Yeah, it's true.
Spencer Radio Streichert.
Nice.
My initials are SRS.
Nice.
Word. It's actually kind of catchy.
It is kind of catchy. Okay, so every episode of the podcast, we go into a special segment designed by our boy, our producer.
Who? Me?
Sam the Tech Man.
What?
And because nobody has made a theme yet, I have a theme for Sam's Today in Music History for July 5th.
And this time he knows how to play the kazoo.
We'll see. Yeah.
Do you recognize that tune?
Yeah.
Chuck Mangione's Feel Good?
Yeah, I sounded just like it.
It did.
Yeah.
It was pitch perfect, baby.
I clenched my forehead so hard there. I'm gonna have to buy anti-aging cream.
I really wanna go back in time and just screenshot your clench.
Well, I was like, I went full stroke. Actually,
Your face looked like my butt usually looks.
Do you guys smell burnt toast? just me?
Remember the acronym, FAST.
Just me. Good job, Spencer.
Okay,
Good job,
so
Sam.
Sam's Today in Music History for July 5th. In 2005, Pink Floyd's David Gilmour said artists who had seen album sales soar over the Live 8 concerts should donate their profits to charity, saying, "This is money that should be used to save lives." In 2014, the 4 surviving members of the Grateful Dead gave what they said would be their final performance, playing to over 70,000 fans at Chicago's Soldier Field. The shows came 20 years after the death of lead guitarist Jerry Garcia, who played his last show in the nation's third largest city in 1995, the year I was born, and Sam is wearing a Jerry Garcia t-shirt.
Were you going to see Grateful Dead in New York?
Yeah, they ended up leaving the day before. Yeah. I thought I had it lined up, but I did not.
That's a bummer.
That's okay. It's with John Mayer, so I like John Mayer, but I'll live.
Yeah, I'm more interested in seeing John Mayer do stand-up because apparently he's a regular at like the Improv in the store and stuff. And I've heard he's really good. That's the other fucking thing. Like I heard from
it checks out with his dating history as well.
Oh, he's quite. He's got that one music video that's quite funny.
Brad Williams. When I did spots on his show at the Laugh Shop when I was a young comic, and Brad was telling me about it, and he was like, you know, the surprising thing is he's pretty fucking good. And I was like, okay.
This one of those guys, fucking handsome and talented.
Annoyingly so at both.
Yeah, well, he pulled it from us.
That's true.
Yeah, he sucked all of our handsomeness and talent out. And
left us with just a podcast.
Yeah, just a podcast.
We just have a podcast and each other.
That's all I need.
Okay, in 1995, more than 100 Grateful Dead fans were hurt when a wooden deck collapsed at an at a campground lodge in Wentzville, Missouri. Hundreds of people were on or under the deck sheltering from heavy rain. More than 4,000 deadheads were staying at the grounds while attending Grateful Dead concerts in St. Louis, in the St. Louis suburb. Did any of them die?
I looked it up, and I couldn't find anything about deaths, but a lot of injuries.
Because I'm not going to lie, when I read 4,000 deadheads, I was like...
That's a lot of deadheads.
Yeah, that's a lot of deadheads.
No, I couldn't find anything about deaths.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't look hard enough, and there was deaths, but, a lot of people got injured was all I could find.
Do better, Sam.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Do better.
In 2002, it was reported that Dr. Dre had become the richest music star after earning $62 million in the last year, $32 million from his own earnings, plus $25 million from his recording label, Aftermath.
And then he made Beats. So,
yeah.
He's worth
Probably still is like one of the richest.
Yeah, he's
not.
I would say he's probably in the top 10.
Yeah, easily.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what's surprising? Do you know what the biggest selling musical act of all time is?
No.
You guys aren't gonna get it. The Beatles are number 2. And this is album sales and concerts and everything.
Didn't we talk about this on the podcast at one point?
We did mention it at one point.
Now I'm like, well,
so I'm seeing if you guys remember.
I don't.
You don't? You gonna take a guess?
Was it Springsteen?
Nope.
No.
He's like number 7.
Okay. I don't know.
It's Garth Brooks.
Ooh, oh yeah, we did talk about this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
he does like the fucking major arena tours. I remember now.
And it does make sense because each of those major arena tours, like he'll go to Saskatoon and be there for a week, and it's all sold out shows.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Crazy though that he hasn't recorded anything in like 20 years because the last thing that he recorded was the Chris Gaines album when he tried to make this rock persona. But he teased recently that there's going to be a Chris Gaines album coming out in the near future, so we're going to get another Chris Gaines album out.
Okay, I got the top 10 if you want to quickly.
Ooh,
hear
yeah.
who the top 10 wealthiest musicians are as of when was this?
I'm gonna say
this is 2023.
Jay-Z's gonna be on it.
Taylor Swift's gonna be on it.
All right, I'll start from 10. Okay, it goes to 10. Number 10, Dolly Parton.
Nice.
Yeah.
Number 9, Bono.
Nice.
Number 8, Celine Dion, which also just quickly about the submarine. I sent that meme though. She hit number 8 on the Billboard top track for My Heart Will Go On.
Yeah.
But you know what's crazy about that is, like, I only know 2 of her songs, and yet she's number 8 on that list. That's insane.
Yeah, well, that's just because people died by the Titanic, and we were all memeing it.
No, okay, no, I know that, but what I mean is number 8 on that list, like, of richest musicians.
I bet you, like, it's almost all her revenues coming from My Heart Will Go On.
Well, probably she's had a Vegas residency for a long time.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
I know now she's not touring. She's got the disease going on. But
she publishes all her own albums. She owns all the rights to that.
That's good. That makes sense. Okay, good Canadian girl.
Yeah, nice. French Canadian. Mm-hmm. Madonna, number 7. Herb Alpert. Number 6.
Fucking what?
Not very familiar with him, I'll be real. Yeah.
Who?
Who?
Now we just sound like a bunch of owls.
Won the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award.
Who the fuck is Herb Alpert?
I actually don't know.
Fucking get on it there, young Jamie.
What the fuck?
I feel so stupid right now.
Open another tab.
Yeah.
Who the fuck is Herb Alpert?
Herb Albert.
Who?
Alpert. Sorry.
Alpert? Oh, that's why I didn't understand.
Yeah, now I know
that
who.
guy. Yeah.
You know his big hits.
I don't really recognize his hits either. Here's his I'll read his opening Wikipedia.
Like
Herb Alpert, born March 31st, 1935, is an American trumpeter who led the band Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass in the 1960s. During the same decade, he co-founded AMN Records.
As soon as you said he was a trumpeter, I knew exactly who you were talking about.
Yeah, he's got 14 platinum albums, 15 gold. He's been on the Billboard 200 charts like 28 different times. Like,
damn.
Yeah, this dude's just kind of everywhere. Yeah.
Nice.
Damn. Okay.
All right. Now back to it. Number 5, P. Diddy, baby.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Number 4, Sir Paul McCartney.
Nice.
Yep, that makes sense.
Number 3, Andrew Lloyd Webber. Number.
Okay, now I have a quarrel here with that.
Yeah.
Because he's a composer.
Yeah.
But.
So, I mean, he's not a musician.
No, I just think.
Is he an artist, Spencer?
Fuck both of you.
It makes sense. I mean, he's written a lot of really famous fucking musicals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Andrew Weber. I hear that name and immediately I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, that checks out. 3, I'm a little surprised by that he's that high up on this list.
That is surprising. I wouldn't have had him in the top 10. I mean,
no.
I probably would have put him like in the top 20.
but it makes sense as like his musicals being turned into movies,
And
like,
he also
all
gets
the fucking-
residuals every single time a community theater fucking
all the
puts
rights,
on one of
all
his
the
shows.
rights.
Probably making
Yeah,
a shitload.
fuck.
But surprisingly, who's not on this list is Dre right now.
Really?
Really?
No, Dre has fallen off because number 2, Rihanna,
Nice.
Riri,
Wow.
and then number 1, Jay-Z.
Yeah,
Wow.
I figured it'd be Jay.
That's fucking insane that Taylor Swift isn't on that list.
No,
Well,
Does it
I feel
say-
like she's growing now because she didn't own like some of her masters.
I guess-
for a
I guess
while.
that's a good point.
She made her money off of touring, which is not a sustainable way as a musician.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, in all fairness, you do make more money from touring than you do
but
from
you don't like
sales.
you
but
don't get that back end
Yeah,
revenue
that's-
from streams and shit.
yeah, and that's the one big problem with all of the streaming services. Like okay, for
She didn't
instance,
get her $20 for the 2 billion streams.
yeah, but that's the thing. That's the biggest problem with it is that a lot of these all of the record. There's like 5 major record labels that all are like share owners in Spotify and Apple Music and everything like that. So they kind of hold everything by the ball. So they get a bigger cutback than the artists do.
They also double
And-
dip, right?
Yeah, and
yeah.
for someone like me, like like for instance, my comedy album, it's not like it's blown up, but I mean, it's got 40,000 streams on Spotify, and I've probably made off of that like $800.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of fucking crazy.
Yeah. Just quick news about talking about this. I saw today that Sony is trying to buy Warner Bros. Right now.
Ooh.
Yeah, they're entering to buy out like everything, music, like all the parks, everything.
Doesn't Warner Brothers own Capitol Records?
Capitol, I believe so. Like they own a lot. They're not part of Universal. No. UMG. No.
Okay.
No,
No.
that is Universal.
Yeah, it's Universal Music Group. Yeah.
No, it's like E something.
EMI?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they own that.
That's-
And
yeah.
Sony already has a ton of record companies, so they're trying to buy out everything, like Discovery with Warner Brothers.
Wow.
Yeah,
Gotta
I
love
know.
monopolies.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
Really appreciating those monopolies.
I love that game.
Go right to jail, Sam.
Okay, in
You
2003,
dog, you.
in 2003, Johnny Cash made his last ever live performance when he appeared at the Carter Ranch before singing Ring of Fire. He read a statement about his late wife that he had written shortly before taking the stage. The spirit of June Carter overshadows me tonight with the love she had for me and the love I have for her. We connect somewhere between here and heaven. She came down for a short visit, I guess, from heaven to visit with me tonight to give me courage and inspiration like she always has. Cash died on September 12th of that year. You know, it's weird, and this is a pattern that I've seen, and I had one of the old ranchers I used to work for, he mentioned this one time, and ever since he said it, I've seen the pattern. If there's like an elderly couple that's been together for 50 years, if the wife dies, the husband will usually die within the year. But if the husband dies, the wife can live for another 10 or so
that's
years.
right. Yeah, I was
And-
about to say the same
yeah.
thing. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
He followed it up with, that proves how much we need women and they don't need us, which I also agree with. But
That's shockingly true. That's usually how it goes.
yeah.
I think part of that is because, especially that generation, like the woman did all the housework and did all that.
Yeah.
So they knew how to live. Like my grandparents are getting old, and my grandma's right now teaching my grandpa how to live for just in case.
Yeah.
And like he's learning how to fold laundry right now, and it's kind of wild to think about because
Well-
I've been doing that since I was like 12.
And it's also I think a matter of with that generation, look at what the jobs that they had before they were married, and then like even continuing on once they were married. Like a lot of times there was like for instance, both my grandpas worked physical labor their whole lives, and they still fucking do for fun. Like they're just like, my grandpa's like, oh, I'm gonna go cut a bunch of firewood. That's my summer job.
Yeah.
Time to dig some holes.
Dig some holes.
The death part, like the earlier death of men, is like a lifestyle thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So in 1975, Rolling Stone Keith Richards was arrested by the Highway Patrol in Arkansas on charges of reckless driving and possessing an offensive weapon. What's an offensive weapon?
I think it says.
A 7-inch hunting knife? But that's not offensive.
No. What the fuck was he doing in Arkansas? That's my first question. What the fuck is he doing in Arkansas?
Obtaining an offensive weapon.
Yeah. It's like, no, that's weird.
Okay,
Strange.
so in 1954, working together for the first time in a recording studio with Scotty Moore and Bill Black, Elvis Presley fools around during a break with an up-tempo version of That's All Right. Producer Sam Phillips has them then repeat the jam and records it. It becomes Presley's first release on Sun Records.
Nice.
Cool. Releases on this day. Creedence Clearwater Revival's album, Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Oh, you got it right on the second time. Good job.
You can't say it. You can't say it.
I can't say it.
It's the cursed name.
CCR.
CCR.
19. Wait, you can't say it?
No, yeah, it's like a thing in the music
Then
industry.
why the fuck did you write it down? You fucked me.
I fucked you.
You fucked me. You bastard.
Well, you didn't say it right anyway, so it doesn't count.
You fucked it.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Okay, so in 1972, Frank Zappa's Waka Jaka. What?
He releases so much music. I feel like almost like every other release.
Waka
I do is
Jawaka?
You throw Frank Zappa fucking everywhere.
Waka
He's
Jawaka.
everywhere.
Waka Jawaka.
Named after his daughter.
In 1993, U2's Zooropa came out.
Fucking all the names.
In 1993, Bjork's debut. And in 1994, Hootie and the Blowfish's Cracked Rear View.
Nice.
All right. Now, every episode on Misfits on Vinyl, we review an album. Sometimes it's a favorite album. Sometimes it's a popular one. Sometimes it crosses over. This one I know crosses over for me. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but
I love this album in high school, but I'm not the biggest fan of the Pistols anymore just because of controversies and shit. When I learned about it later in high school.
I will say, though, like, I still will separate the art from the artist. With
this one's a little easier, too, than other artists. But
like,
I fell off because of this.
Like, this one, it's easier, too, because it's, like, the band had already broken up, and and you know, it's a whole thing. Anyways, the album we're reviewing is Never Mind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols. This is, believe it or not, our first straight up just punk album.
Yeah. And one of the like biggest, earliest, most influential punk.
Quintessential.
Yeah.
Like this is one of the biggest ones, you know, the late 70s punk movement, the punk scene. This is the one.
Everyone who picked up a guitar in the 80s to try and learn was a fan of this album.
Speaking of punk, I'm going to go on a quick story because I was at a punk show, Sled Island.
Yeah, you saw Mannequin Pussy.
I saw Mannequin Pussy. Rad show. Amazing show. Highly recommend. But I saw Chris, the lead guitarist of Peach Pit, just chilling there, and I couldn't go. I just too anxious to go say hi, but it was hilarious.
Oh, you bastard! You should have
like,
went
it
out.
was too chill of a vibe of him there. Like no one else was going up to him. I'm like, I can't do this. But apparently he was playing at Dandy that day, just for like his friend's band.
Oh, cool.
He like showed up and just like played guitar for them and was just hanging out at Sled that night.
I would have been like, come on our podcast.
Yeah, I have no shame.
I needed one of you guys there. I was on a date, so it was like one of those. Where I'm
Oh
like,
yeah,
ooh.
Sam was on a date because he's in love.
Sam's in love.
Let's fucking hear all
Love is
about
in
his
the
fucking
air.
date.
I
Oh,
was at
wanna be
Mannequin
that
Pussy
guy
with
on
the
the
love
date.
of my life.
I was at Mannequin Pussy with a real life pussy. It was
Okay,
me. I was
easy.
the real life pussy.
yeah,
Yeah,
he was
no.
referring to yourself. Yeah,
Yeah,
because you
you're
didn't go
right.
up and
Never
talk to the
mind.
guy from Peach
Yeah,
Pit.
that's exactly
you
why
get him
you
on the
were-
podcast.
But I had to talk about that because I did it on the last episode.
Nice. That's cool.
That is cool.
It was cool to see him. I'll put up the photo that I took of him creeping.
Don't do that. That's creepy.
That's so fucking weird,
You sent
dude.
it. You sent it, and it was weird.
It was weird in
weirder than
the-
actually going up and talking to
If you
him.
went up and talked to
Yeah.
him, I wouldn't have even been weirded
Yeah.
out. But it was creepy that you were just like from a distance, and we just see a little bit of your ear. That's the other thing.
Sam was the first guy to paparazzi fucking
Peach Pit.
Yeah, like
Done. We're gonna
like,
sell that photo.
call TMZ.
TMZ right here.
Sam's like,
Canadian indie rock band spotted at Canadian Indie Rock Festival punk show.
he'll sell it.
He's playing too good at pool. I think he's on drugs.
He'll sell the fucking photo to Hello Canada for $5.
Finally, I'm a paid artist.
He's gonna sell it to like the free newspapers they give out at fucking metro stations in Vancouver. It's like Vancouverite spotted in Calgary.
Ooh. No, in Victoria. If that was Victoria.
Yeah, that's right. Careful, don't get Spencer riled up again.
Don't get me pissed about Victoria. I do love Victoria.
Sorry to divert right there.
Victoria is, I will say this, one of my favorite cities to go and perform in. It's like, the vibe just matches me a lot, and I can't wait to go back. I want to own a vacation home in Victoria.
On the island. I don't know if I'd live in Victoria, but on the island would be nice.
On the island would be nice.
If you go a little more north, like Campbell River,
yeah,
nice.
or Tofino. Tofino's great. Water is the same temperature all year round.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, so never mind the bollocks, here's the Sex Pistols. So it was released on the 28th of October 1977 in the UK through Virgin Records, and on the 11th of November in 1977 in the US through Warner Brothers. It was their debut and only studio album. The band's internal relationships were always volatile, and it even impacted this album because the original bassist, Glenn Matlock, left the band early in the recording process, and while he is credited as a co-writer on all but 2 of the tracks, he only performed bass and backing vocals on Anarchy in the UK. He was replaced with the new bass player, Sid Vicious, who is credited on 2 of the songs as the writer after he joined the band, but he was so bad at playing the bass, and he couldn't play the bass, so Steve Jones ended up playing the bass on the whole album instead.
Well, apparently, too, I was watching the interview with Steve Jones. He was only playing music for a year when they recorded this album.
Yeah.
So he wasn't even well-versed either. Yeah.
They were all, like, literal street punks.
Yeah.
Most punk shit I've ever heard.
It is pretty fucking punk. So drummer Paul Cook, Steve Jones, and singer Johnny Rotten appear on every track, though. The album had 2 producers who alternated sessions, and the final mix included songs that had both of their sessions in the same song. No one knows which producer produced which because of this confusion. One of the producers, Bill Price, said this, and this is a bit of a long quote, but it really shows how fucked this recording process was. The simple fact of the matter was that Chris was hired by Malcolm McLaren to do a series of singles for the Sex Pistols. I was hired by Malcolm to do a series of album tracks with the Sex Pistols. Life got slightly complicated because I did a few album tracks that Chris remade as singles. Also, Chris started a couple of tracks that got abandoned as singles, which I remade and then used as album tracks. On quite a large number of songs, when we finished the album, we had 2 versions of the song, and I couldn't quite understand why Malcolm kept chopping and changing between different versions of different songs. Then it slowly dawned on Chris and myself that Malcolm was trying to slip between the 2 stools and then not pay Chris or me. So we said, I'll tell you what, Malcolm, whatever's on the Sex Pistols album, it was either done by me or Chris, and you can pay us and we'll divvy it amongst ourselves, which is what we did. But it didn't. But it did force that very strange credit simply because the sleeve was printed long before it was finally decided which version of the individual song was on the record. If we had known, it would have said produced by Bill Price or produced by Chris Thomas. That's how you ended up with the credit produced by Bill Price and Chris Thomas.
Makes sense.
So producer Chris Thomas, the other producer, was known for producing albums for the Beatles, Pink Floyd, Elton John, and the Pretenders. He was a classically trained violinist who played in several London bands and then even turned down the opportunity to perform with Jimi Hendrix and Mitch Mitchell. After several years, he decided that he had little interest in making a career as a musician. In '98, he stated, "I realized that being in a band, you were dependent on all these people. And I also knew that if I had ever been successful in a band, I would have wanted to stay in the studio and just make the records. I wasn't that interested in playing live."
That makes sense.
So, fun little story here. During the time that they're recording, bassist Sid Vicious stumbled into the same recording room as the rock band Queen. He aimed an insult at lead singer Freddie Mercury, saying, "Have you brought the ballet to the masses yet?" And then Mercury got up and responded, "Are you Simon Ferocious or something? What are you going to do about it?" Took him by the collar and then threw him out of the room.
Some cheeky banter.
Later, Queen's producer Roy Thomas Baker had a word with the Pistols engineer over the interruption by Johnny Rotten, which was a different one, saying, "One of the band members just crawled on all fours across the studio up to the side of the piano, said, hello, Freddy, and then left on all fours. Could you make sure this doesn't happen again?
It's like, imagine if they had email back then, the fucking CC, who they'd CC on that dude. That's funny.
As per my last email.
As per my last email, he can walk in on 2 legs when we're not recording and, not say anything weird. If that works for you, let me know. Get back to me.
Okay, before Virgin could release... Oh, wait. The album was influential towards many bands and musicians and the industry in general. In particular, the album's raw energy and Johnny Rotten's sneering delivery and half-singing were often considered game-changing, and it is frequently listed among the most influential punk albums, if not one of the greatest and most important albums of all time.
That makes sense.
It does make sense.
I mean, their sound was, at the time, the rawness of it was not common. It's unpolished. It's raw.
It was shocking, at that time. Like, you read interviews and reviews, and, it shocked the
Well,
masses.
even the name, man. The fucking band name being the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
And they were so, anti-monarch, and at that time, people were, bowing for that queen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. They, and they released their first single on Queen Elizabeth II's Silver Jubilee.
Yes.
Which is fucking hilarious. So before Virgin could release Nevermind the Bollocks, Richard Branson discovered that 2 other Sex Pistol albums were competing with his labels. In October, a bootleg named Spunk, which featured high-quality recordings of their demos and recording sessions with Dave Goodman, was released on a label called Blank. Even with the availability of Spunk, the release of Nevermind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols was eagerly awaited in the UK, with advanced orders of 125,000 copies.
Wow.
It debuted at number 1 on the UK albums charts the week after it was released. A ban of the album enacted by major retailer. Gonna just reverse that one. A ban of the album enacted by major retailers resulted in the records selling well through independent vendors instead, which makes a lot of sense and also kind of does fit the vibe of what they were going for because they were so anti-establishment.
Well, what I found interesting in that video, I was watching that interview, they were talking about the kind of the climate at the time and why he thought the album kind of spoke to people. He was talking about London in the 70s. There was a job crisis. There was a lot of abandoned buildings, a lot of crime. It was the 70s. All major cities kind of went through that transition point from the 60s and the 70s. Where
fucking New York.
Things got nasty and shitty and gross. And he was saying, fucking nobody had jobs, nobody had money. People were pissed off and they were unhappy. And they were a part of those people. So they just fucking put that energy into the music and it connected.
Yeah. And you can hear it in you can hear the anger in the vocals, which is funny because I think nowadays there's a lot of bands that try and force the anger on it, but because of what he was singing about, he fucking genuinely had that anger.
Yeah.
So the album was originally going to be called God Save Sex Pistols. Jamie Reed's cover concept refrained from including a picture of the group and instead was this red and yellow in color with cutout letters and a finish resembling a crude screen print, while the U.S. version was pink with a green Sex Pistols logo. The album's title changed in the mid-1977 based on a phrase supplied by Steve Jones. Jones said he picked up on the phrase "Nevermind the Bollocks" from 2 fans who would say it to one another. And Johnny Rotten explained its meaning was the working class expression to stop talking rubbish. Now, do you know what a bollocks is?
It's a nutsack?
It is a nutsack. Yeah, it's a British term for a nutter.
Nice.
All right. In the UK, the album was subject to what Halen described as blatant acts of censorship exercised by media and retail outlets alike. London police visited the city's Virgin Record store branches and told them they faced prosecution for indecency as stipulated by the 1899 Indecent Advertisements Act if they continued to display posters of the album cover in their windows. The displays were either toned down or removed. However, on November 9th, 1977, just 2 days before the album was released in the U.S., the London Evening Standard announced on its front page headline, "Police move in on punk disc shops." and reported how Virgin Records shop manager in Nottingham was arrested for displaying the record after being warned to cover up the word bollocks.
Wow.
What's really crazy is they actually ended up in a lawsuit about this. Like it was like, you know how in the 80s Dee Snider went and spoke to Congress and basically told
About
Tipper Gore to fuck off.
Yeah, about the explicit laws.
Yeah.
And
They had sort of a similar thing happen in the UK, and the jury unanimously was like, well, we might not agree with what you're saying because of our laws around freedom of expression and freedom of speech and freedom around art. You're allowed to do it. So they then the British government had to back the fuck off.
That's the thing I love about the whole freedom of speech thing. No matter, it's mostly conservatives, but they love to quote freedom of speech until they hear something they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And then it's suddenly, fucking, burn the book, fucking ban the album.
It's the end of the fucking world, man.
Ban the album. Yeah, that shit always makes me laugh.
Dude, I'm getting it right now on TikTok.
Yeah, you've been poking the bear.
I've been poking the bear.
You have been,
but it's been so easy because apparently
it's really easy.
All I have to do is make a joke that I will say the very first one that I didn't actually name any names, and it was pretty fucking clear across the board because it was the night of the election. I just said, no matter who wins tomorrow, you can piss someone off by saying, wow, I can't believe they'd re-elect her after what she did as the premier. Which
that was a good joke.
That's a good joke because it's not
goes both ways.
It goes both ways. But conservatives took that so fucking against them in a personal slight, and then it blew up because I got so many hate comments. And it's so funny too because the way that TikTok stops hateful speech, they'll be like, do you want to approve this comment? And it'll be something that has nothing to do with me, but then they'll let somebody comment and be like, listen, you fucking faggot, move out of here. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what the hell?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, people are the worst on the internet. That's why I commend you for poking the bear.
Poking the bear.
It's never easy. You put yourself out there and you let yourself get hate on.
I stick my finger in those ribs and I twist. Okay,
Nice.
I'm going to plug my computer in before it dies.
Yes, good call. Quick break.
37 minutes.
What
This
time?
one, we're going to, I guarantee you, we're going to knock it out at exactly 1 hour.
Bet. I just made a post tagging Misfits on vinyl.
I saw. Fuck, I'm in your story twice today.
Yeah, dude.
Fucking feeling special.
Girlfriend.
Feeling special.
Okay. All right, I'm going to take a drink and then we'll go right into the artist.
We're back.
And we back.
We back. Okay. About the artist, the Sex Pistols were an English punk rock band formed in London in 1975. Although their initial career lasted just 2.5 years, they were one of the most culturally influential acts in pop music. The band initiated the punk movement in the UK and inspired many later punk and alt-rock musicians, while their clothing and hairstyles were a significant influence on the punk image. So, the Sex Pistols' first lineup consisted of vocalist Johnny Rotten, now going by his name John Lydon, guitarist Steve Jones, drummer Paul Cook, and bassist Glenn Matlock. Like we mentioned earlier, he was replaced by Sid Vicious in early '77. Under the management of Malcolm McLaren, they attracted widespread media controversies, bringing them to the attention of the mainstream British press. Oh, wow. What the hell happened there? British press.
British press.
So, I'm only going to talk about Johnny Rotten and Sid Vicious. I did a lot of stuff on them specifically because I do feel like out of everybody in the band, they're kind of the two, most notorious.
The most famous of the band, and also, like you said, most controversial, most notorious. Especially one of them.
Yeah.
So let's dive into it.
So at the age of 7, Johnny Rotten contracted spinal meningitis and spent a year in St. Anne's Hospital in London. Throughout the entire experience, he suffered from headaches. He had insane seizures, nausea, hallucinations, and then he was in comas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have two that I got a text right there. Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, my mic was not there.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you knew this, but fucking this was what, like 5 years ago?
I was
4 years.
19,
Yeah.
so 6 years ago I
Yeah.
had spinal meningitis.
Really?
I was in the hospital for only a night, and
But you were fucked up, dude.
then I was
remember.
bedridden at home for a week and a half.
I can't remember. I think I came and saw you. I don't remember.
Maybe. I
you
remember
were
I was
fucked
seeing
up,
a
bro.
girl at that time, and she like had to go back home for school, and she drove down to visit me like multiple times.
You were in rough shape. I remember that, man. That was scary.
It was weird. It was a weird experience. I don't recommend it. And
Not on my to-do list.
I still have lasting like back problems from that.
Wow.
Like
Fuck,
just once
dude.
that they told me that they'll never go away, and I have to do stretches still every morning, or else I'll have like a really tight back.
Dude, that's insane.
Yeah.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
That was when we would have first known each other too. Fuck.
Like just after I left university, so I had known you for about a year and a half at that
Oh
point.
shit. Okay,
Yeah.
so I would have been probably in Toronto at that
I
time.
think you were in Toronto at that time.
I
just
was-
before
damn.
you
Yeah, I
left.
was just getting ready. I remember that, though, because it was fucking scary.
Yeah, I was.
It was really
It
scary.
was weird because I had like what I thought was a seizure in bed, and then went to work the next day and felt not okay. And then like a manager was making fun of me for this, and then I went to the hospital, and then he just didn't talk to me like when I came back, because he felt so bad that I actually was like almost died.
Dude, don't you love that though when like somebody does the wrong thing and then they have to eat their fucking words of
No,
it?
he like wouldn't look at me. It was like a month till he like half apologized.
Fuck.
Yeah, that's why I just, as soon as you said spinal meningitis, I was like, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
No,
thought
sorry.
about
I was
that.
like looking at my phone as you said that part, so I tuned out for a half second.
That's
The
fucking
one
crazy.
part.
And speaking about the like lasting effects, like that's part of the reason why like Johnny Rotten had the fucking weird curve in his spine and what has been called the Lidden stare, where like his eyes kind of just go off. So then on the other side, Sid Vicious, born John Simon Ritchie on May 10th, 1957, to John and Anne Ritchie. Anne dropped out of school and joined the British Army, where she met Ritchie's father, a guardsman at Buckingham Palace, and a semi-professional trombone player on the London jazz scene. Shortly after Sid Vicious was born, though, his mother and him moved to Ibiza, and they were supposed to be joined by his dad, who never showed up. So then she sold weed. And
Nice.
that was what she did in Ibiza to get by, was sold weed. And then with the help of the British consulate, then she ended up moving back to the UK, where she married a dude who died 6 months later.
Fuck.
And she was so strung out on opiates when he was a child that she did not know that her son had learning disabilities and was in a like school for like kids with learning difficulties.
Really?
So then while all of this is happening, Sid told a counselor at school that he contemplated suicide and was torturing cats.
That doesn't surprise me.
Nope, kind of makes sense.
Yeah, fuck.
So in 1973, John Lydon was at the same school as Sid Vicious, and they ended up like meeting each other, but he nicknamed him Sid Vicious after he was bitten by Johnny Rotten's hamster named Sid, named after Sid Barrett.
That's so stupid.
It's so dumb.
Yeah, that's fucking really stupid.
Checks out though.
So they both end up like fucking off out of school, and then according to Johnny Rotten, him and Sid Vicious took up busking, with Lydon singing and occasionally playing the violin, and Vicious playing a tambourine or an acoustic guitar. And they would play Alice Cooper's covers, and people would pay them money to stop.
That's funny. That's really funny.
So
What
then
an origin story.
Then the Sex Pistols evolved from the Strand, sometimes known as the Swankers, which was formed in 1972 by teenager Steve Jones on vocals, Paul Cook on drums, and Wally Nightingale on guitar. According to Jones, he and Cook played on instruments he had stolen, And the band regularly hung out at two clothing stores on Kings Road in Chelsea, London. John Curvin and Steve Raynor's Acme Attractions, and Malcolm McLaren and Vivian Westwood's Too Fast to Live, Too Young to Die. And it's there where they ended up meeting the other members of the band. In early 74, Jones asked McLaren to take over for management. And then Glenn Matlock, who was an art student, who occasionally worked at the clothing store, joined as bassist. But then McLaren temporarily located to New York, and before his departure, he and Westwood had conceived a new identity for their shop, renamed Sex. It changed its focus from retro culture to S&M inspired anti-fashion, and then. In 1975, inspired by the punk rock scene that was emerging in Lower Manhattan, in particular by the Ramones, and the radical style and attitude of Richard Hell, he began taking a greater interest in the band.
Nice. That makes sense.
So the group had been rehearsing regularly, overseen by The Clash's Bernard Rhodes, and had already performed live, but they hadn't recorded anything yet. No. I don't think they had really, planned a lot of their shows at this point in their career. I think there was a lot of improv yelling from the sounds of things, everything that I could read. But in August of 75, Rhodes spotted a 19-year-old Johnny Rotten wearing a Pink Floyd t-shirt with the words "I hate" written above the band's name, and holes scratched through the Floyd member's eyes. Soon after, either Rhodes or McLaren asked Johnny Rotten to meet Jones and Cook in a pub. In 77, the Sex Pistols manager announced that Glenn Matlock had been thrown out of the band because he liked the Beatles, and that he had been replaced by Vicious. In his autobiography, I Was a Teenage Sex Pistol, Matlock says he quit because he was sick of all the bullshit.
Yeah, you don't fucking say.
Yeah.
I mean, someone that produced for the Beatles produced on their album.
Yeah.
They're fucking so full of shit. That's so funny.
In 2000, there was a documentary called The Filth and the Fury, and the band members agreed that there was tension between Matlock and Rotten, but Matlock said that those tensions were aggravated by the manager, McLaren, who wanted to generate chaos in the band as a creative mechanism, which is always just a recipe for a good
works,
time.
Yeah.
As we've known with Fleetwood Mac, you don't necessarily need to create that.
No,
I
can just happen.
Can fucking have it. So he wanted Matlock to leave and then replaced him with Vicious, saying if Johnny Rotten is the voice of punk, then Vicious is the attitude. I disagree with that. Sid Vicious, bit of a Nazi on top of everything else.
Yeah.
So
fuck.
Maybe he's not the
Not
attitude.
very punk.
Yeah. Not very punk. That's like people saying that the skateboarder Jesse Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like people saying that, oh, well, he was just punk because all of his shit had swastikas and stuff on it. It's like, no, he was a fucking white supremacist.
Yeah, he was just a Nazi.
Call a spade a spade.
We call that a skinhead, I believe.
Yeah, that is
fuck off.
That is neo-Nazi at its
Dead
fucking
Kennedys say
worst.
it best. Nazi punks fuck off.
Yeah, and exactly. So Vicious became. He was a Sex Pistols uber fan. He went to every single show that they ever did. And he was offered, he was encouraged to be drunk and disorderly, with Wobble saying Sid was offered up as a sacrificial lamb by the people around the Pistols. None of them would have gone over the top, but he was like a kamikaze pilot, and they were all too happy to strap him in and send him off.
Let the unhinged guy go wild. Yeah, great call.
Yeah, great call. That never ends in something terrible. So the next thing that happened, which is pretty fucking funny, because this is before they've recorded the album. So they got national attention because on December 1st, 1977, the band and members of the Bromley contingent swore during an early evening broadcast of the Thames Television Today program hosted by Bill Grundy, appearing as a last-minute replacement for fellow EMI artist Queen, who they obviously are such good pals with.
Yeah, they...
And Queen also had to stop. They had to cancel their appearance because of Freddie Mercury's dental appointment, which is kind of funny. But during the interview, Jones said the band had fucking spent its label advance, and Rotten used the word shit, although both of these statements were apparently inaudible to Grundy, who had earlier claimed to be drunk. He then engaged in a repertoire with Susie Sue, who declared that she had always wanted to meet him. And Grundy responded, "Did you really? Well, we'll meet afterwards, shall we?" So the interviewer says this to her. And this prompted this exchange between Jones and the host. Okay, so Steve Jones, "You dirty sod. You dirty old man." Grundy, "Well, keep going, Chief. Keep going. Go on. You've got another 5 seconds. Say something outrageous. "You dirty bastard." "Go on again. "You dirty fucker." "What a clever boy. What a fucking rotter." So, although the program was only broadcast in the London region, the ensuing media coverage occupied the tabloid newspaper for days. This is right before their album. Their album then comes out, and in January of '78, the Pistols began a U.S. tour, eventually consisting of dates mainly in the Deep South, which is a great market for the Sex Pistols. It was delayed.
Sid Vicious fit right in.
Yeah, no kidding. It was delayed due to American authorities' reluctance to issue visas to Jones's criminal record, resulting in the cancellation of several dates in the Northeast. Although highly anticipated, the tour was plagued by infighting, poor planning, and belligerent and violent audiences. The manager later admitted that he purposely booked redneck bars to provoke hostile situations. He's really, really not a good manager. He's just a fucking shit fuck. Over the course of the 2 weeks, Vicious, heavily addicted to heroin, attempted to live up to his stage name. According to Johnny Rotten, he finally had an audience of people who would behave with shock and horror, and Sid was easily led by the nose. Early in the tour, Vicious left his hotel room in Memphis to buy drugs. When found, he was beaten by the security team hired by Warner Brothers. The band's American label. He subsequently appeared with the words, "Give me a fix" on his chest. Accounts vary as to whether the words were written or carved there. Fucking
me,
Jesus.
dude. Yeah, wow.
During a concert in San Antonio, Vicious called the crowd a bunch of faggots before hitting an audience member across the head with his bass guitar. In Baton Rouge, he received simulated oral sex on stage, later declaring, "That's the kind of girl I like." Suffering from heroin withdrawals during a show in Dallas, he spat blood at a woman who climbed on stage and punched him in the face. He was admitted to the hospital later that night to treat various injuries. Off stage, he was said to have kicked a photographer, attacked a security guard, and challenged one of his own bodyguards to a fight.
Wait till you hear what Taylor Swift's doing on her tour, dude. Like, oh my god, man. This is nothing, dude. This is fucking nothing, man. What a fucking shithead. What a little piece of shit.
What a fucking absolute dick
Yeah,
fuck.
what a fucking little asshole.
You know what's funny too is like he's like not talented.
It was the right...
Like, you know what I
That's
mean?
it.
Like,
you can leave it.
Yeah,
that's all I have to say. Is
It was the right period of time for someone like that, though. Like, fucking people ate that shit up.
Yeah, like, and you know what? Like I mean, obviously he was a drug addict and had a troubled youth and all this stuff, and you know, there's a certain amount of his history that can account for his behavior.
Yeah.
But and there's also an argument to be said for, was he playing the fucking heel? You know, like, was there a bit of a heel thing going on? But that only goes to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think he was playing the heel, but he liked it.
He probably played into it, yeah, big time.
Heel.
Yeah.
When he became a real heel in life.
I think so too, and I've seen that happen. Actually, somebody that another artist that I know, who I'm not gonna name them.
Okay.
I'm gonna be very vague about this, but I really appreciated them because of what they did as a performer. And then I realized that that's just who they were.
Exactly.
And it made me go, "Ooh."
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I think you do.
Yeah, I do.
So, probably playing this file, send media help. Oh, that was a Wikipedia copy. Okay, so later on, though, Johnny Rotten was suffering from the flu and coughing up blood and felt increasingly isolated from Cook and Jones, was disgusted by Sid Vicious as well, and later said that he and Cook couldn't stand being around. Jones later said that he and Cook couldn't stand being around Johnny and Sid anymore. You couldn't turn around for a minute without Sid starting a fight. Then to top it all off, you had Rotten, who was on his own trip and basically thought he was God by that stage. So on January 14th, during the tour's final date at the Winterland Ballroom in San Francisco, a disillusioned Rotten introduced the band's encore by saying, "You'll get one number and one number only, 'cause I'm a lazy bastard." That one number was the Stooges' No Fun, and at the end of the song, Rotten, kneeling on stage, chanted an unambiguous declaration, "This is no fun, no fun, this is no fun at all, no fun." As the final cymbal crash died away, Rotten addressed the audience directly by laughing and then going, "Ever have that feeling you've been cheated? Good night," before throwing down his microphone and walking off stage. He later observed that he felt cheated and that he didn't want to go on any longer. He thought that the whole thing was a joke, and the manager wouldn't even speak to him at that point. He would not discuss anything with him, and he would turn around and tell Paul and Steve that the tension was all his fault, and he wouldn't agree to anything. Now, when this happened, he had the band basically all stuck around California for a little bit, doing their own things. And then Johnny Rotten phoned Richard Branson because he could at that point, who was the head of Virgin Records, and he asked him for basically money so that he could get back home to England. Richard Branson instead bought him a ticket to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, because he was going to be going down there. And so he was like, "I want you to come and meet up with me and some other people, like some other artists." So he goes down there and he meets up with the artist. It was Devo. And Richard Branson had the bright idea, "Hey, it'd be great if Johnny Rotten became your lead singer." And the band and Johnny Rotten were both like, "No, that's a terrible idea." And so they just didn't do it. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But after that, the manager was still convinced that he could make the Sex Pistols work, so he upped Sid Vicious from bassist to lead singer, and they recorded the double-sided record without Rotten, which had his version of My Way, which I actually think is a fucking really good song. His cover of My Way by Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, I've heard that.
As we know. On the night of the 11th of October, 1978, Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen hosted a party in their hotel room, during which Vicious took approximately 30 Tuinol tablets, and while numerous people came and went, was comatose for the rest of the night. At about 11 a.m. the next day, hotel staff found Nancy dead on the bathroom floor with a knife wound to her abdomen. Vicious was found wandering in the hallway. He first claimed to have killed her, and then he remembered nothing. Two people who had been at the party stated that Nancy was alive at 5 a.m. The murder weapon was identified as a Jaguar K11 hunting knife, which Nancy had purchased for Sid a few days earlier.
That's an offensive weapon.
That is an offensive weapon.
Yeah, I'm going to say that's a fucking offensive weapon.
Good thing Keith Richards didn't have that one.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Lawyers claimed the defense, though, that with the number of people that were in and out of the hotel room, it was impossible to pin it on him. In the meantime, McLaren announced that the Sex Pistols would reunite to record a Christmas album to benefit Sid's defense, and sold T-shirts with the slogan, "She's dead, I'm alive, I'm yours." Ugh, the fucking cringe there. Now, quickly through the rest of this, I'm just summarizing this, but he got arrested for assault because he was backstage at another show, and Todd Smith, who I forget which band he was the drummer for, Sid Vicious was talking to his girlfriend. Todd Smith didn't like it, so he fucking stabbed him with a beer bottle, and then he served, I think it was 6 months in Rikers. He got released, though, and the day he got released, he went and got heroin, and then he died of an overdose that day, February 1st, 1978. And that's the end of Sid Vicious. All right.
Yeah.
Notable tracks.
That guy sounds like a real piece of shit.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be a good hang.
No.
There's a lot of rock stars where I'm like, it'd be fun to party with you, not him.
I feel like he's like the type of person like nobody really wanted to be around. Like, I'm surprised he kept a girlfriend for that long. Like,
I think that's drugs.
Yeah.
I think that's drugs, and like that's. I mean, I haven't seen the Sid and Nancy show yet. I do want to see it because isn't Maisie Williams Nancy in that?
I didn't even know this existed.
Yeah, there's
isn't there a movie as well from the fucking 80s?
Yeah, Gary Oldman played Sid Vicious, which is very fucking funny.
It was Sid Vicious and Winston Churchill.
Yeah. I mean, they were both racist.
Yeah, it checks out.
Facts.
Okay, so notable tracks and singles. Holiday in the Sun, which peaked at number 8. God Save the Queen, released on Lizzie II's Silver Jubilee. The song reached #1 on the NME charts in the UK and made it to #2 on the official UK singles charts as used by the BBC. But this led to accusations that the BBC altered the charts because they didn't want that one to be the #1.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. That's what fucking Steve was saying on the interview I watched.
Yeah.
That they didn't want it to be #1, so they Peoples at Bay, he said, made sure it didn't happen.
Which it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I could see that happening. Anarchy in the UK was their debut single. It was number 56 on Rolling Stone magazine's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. Now, reception. During the media foray over the song God Save the Queen, Thomas Price and the Sex Pistols vocalist Johnny Rotten were subject to a razor attack outside a pub in Highbury, London. Because that's logical.
Like razor scooters?
No, like.
Yeah, they got their shins real good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, fucking guy comes in spinning it like a fucking helicopter. Just fucking kicks through the door, fucking
loses.
The UK just has the most creative ways to attack people.
They really do.
Like here, it's like stabbing. In the United States, it's guns. There, it's like razors and acid.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Or a fucking a rice and fucking dart.
Yeah.
Like that one dude that worked in like the accounting of legislature. Like he got fucking killed by a rice and dart.
They're creative over there.
Yeah.
So the album went platinum in the US, 2 times platinum in the UK. It peaked at 106 on the US Billboard charts and #1 in the UK. All Music aggregate score was 5 out of 5 stars.
Oh fuck, that never happened.
As was the Rolling Stone, Q, and the Guardian, 10 out of 10 from Spin Alternative Records Guide. In 1985, NME writers voted Nevermind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols, the 13th greatest album of all time. In 93, the writers voted the album the 3rd greatest of all time.
That seems extra high.
In 87, the Rolling Stone magazine named it the 2nd best album of the previous 20 years, only behind the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. The same magazine listed it as 41 on their list of the 500 greatest albums ever in 2003, maintaining that position until the updated 2012 list, but dropped it to 73 in the 2020 revision. And one more fun fact with the reception. Kurt Cobain stated that this album was in his top 50 favorite albums, and that the title of their second album, Nevermind, was inspired by Nevermind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols, which really angered Johnny Rotten. He got so mad that he decided to go on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Of course.
Why did that anger him? I feel like Kurt Cobain's persona was very reflective of the way they were.
You would think so. And especially because
maybe because Kurt Cobain wasn't a Nazi.
Maybe. And
well, I think sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I think what's weird about it is that I would say punk kind of died in the early 80s for a while. There wasn't
it moved to grunge really hard.
Yeah, but it died in the early 80s and went into hair metal, being the hair metal and heavy metal were the two things, and then grunge overtook that, and that kind of seems like the logical next step, and it makes sense that they would be inspired so much by the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
So it's weird that Johnny Rotten would have such a problem with Nirvana.
Well, I think there's a weird difference in too, the versions of I Don't Give a Fuck in grunge and I Don't Give a Fuck in punk. The I Don't Give a Fuck of punk is I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna fucking do whatever, I'm gonna smash this up, I'm gonna fucking smash my guitar, fuck my instruments.
It was true anarchism without purpose.
Where grunge is
it's nihilism.
It's indifference. It's indifference. I don't give a fuck. I'm not gonna do anything about it.
Yeah,
but the same attitude, but just flipped, right? In action.
Yeah, it brought the existentialism to the anarchist persona.
Yeah, and Sub Pop Records really is, I would say, the reason that grunge exists, because they were able to take it was just a couple of people that really liked the Seattle local music scene, so they made a fucking record company.
Yeah,
and so we wouldn't have Soundgarden, we wouldn't have fucking Pearl Jam and Nirvana if it wasn't for that holy fuck everything sucks attitude, because in the early 90s in the Pacific Northwest things were bad. That was a lumber based industry, and lumber was shit at that point. Canadian lumber did really well at that time. Like everybody that I knew who was like associated with the logging industry in the 90s in Canada was doing great.
Yeah.
It wasn't until like the mid 2000s where it really fucked us here. But in the US, they were screwed at that point.
There's something weird too. The parallel with like hard times creates, a change in the art scene. It seems to be like if you go through different points in history, there's something happens, and then the whole music, whether it's visual art, whether it's movies, reflects that change. There's a change as well within the art scene that's parallel to what's going on in modern times. Whether it's shitty things or good things happening, there's a complete parallel. Like, I mean, you look at the 50s, it was booming. All the movies were glitz and glamour.
Yeah.
They were fucking, big productions, large productions, that sort of thing. The records were the same way.
Yeah. I think you see it especially reflected within, like, punk cultures, starting in, like, the punks of the late 60s. You start seeing, like, the genres of punk move with the times, and that's like one of the most reflective movements, because those groups are the most like honest and the most in it, most for the most part. Like,
well, they're also the youngest.
Exactly.
Like because let's be honest here, like it's not like, okay, obviously there's a difference between punk and pop punk, but if we were gonna look at like the biggest example from our lifetime, Green Day's American Idiot was such a fucking like that is like the equivalent of our generation in terms of punk.
Yeah, and the evolutions move on. Like if I love the punk scene a lot, not the deep cut punk scenes, but kind of the popular ones now. Like if you look at somebody like Jeff Rosenstock, like you can see the reflectiveness from when the early 2000s when he did ska to what it is now. Like it's impressive, and you see the reflection of like who he is from this upbeat personality to this like I hate my life.
and I'll say this too, because we're on the topic. Recommendation that I have for anybody listening who wants to hear new punk done well: Starcrawler.
Starcrawler rips.
Starcrawler fucking rips. They're two of my favorite songs of theirs are covers, but they actually made them, I would say, as good as the originals, which are Pet Sematary. Their Pet Sematary is just
That's
as
how
good
I
as
discovered them.
Yeah,
it fucking goes so hard.
It goes so hard. And then the other one is from the newest Jackass movie. If you're gonna be dumb, you gotta be tough. They did a fucking phenomenal cover of that. But even their originals are really good. I saw them at Big Winter Classic last year, and Siobhan and I were literally right at the front of Broken City. Like, right beside, like, we were getting her secondhand heroin sweat on us. It was fucking amazing.
Also, just like the femme punk movement right now, that is some of the best punk you'll hear. Like, when I saw Mannequin Pussy, I got tickets to that, not really familiar with who they were, listen to their music. Holy shit, is it so good. Like, that's another recommendation that we talked about earlier in the episode, but Mannequin Pussy rips. That's so good. I can recommend Jeff Rosenstock, and I love Pup as well.
Pup is really fucking good.
That's in the pop punk era, but they're still like very reflective of punk.
And I would put them on the heavier side of pop punk.
Absolutely,
like
they got some metal tracks.
They got some fucking very metal tracks. And like if you listen to something like DVP, you're not like
especially their early albums. Oh my god,
Dark Days is just a fucking insane album.
Morbid Stuff is my favorite album because that's the album I discovered them to.
So it
just lives in a special place. No, even their new album Unravel, the unraveling of Pup the band, like that's great.
Oh, it fucks so hard.
That's good punk. Like I know we're talking about Sex Pistols and they have a lot of controversy, so it's nice to recommend some like here's some good punk.
But I would also recommend like my favorite punk band is The Clash.
Yeah.
Clash goes so hard. Yeah,
they go so hard, but they also have so much influence from reggae and blues on top of fucking having a punk influence.
Fuck, we should have done The Clash. I have a Clash album.
I do too.
We probably have the same one.
Yeah, a Combat Rock.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we're due for a Clash.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I would be down to do Combat Rock because it's got controversial opinion. My favorite song by The Clash is Train in Vain. My favorite album is Combat Rock.
I like Train in Vain too. That's one of my favorite songs.
It's a good one.
I don't really like London Calling as a song.
No, I don't like it much either. That's
It's got a really good bass line.
But it's like
that's where my compliments end.
I love Rock the Casbah.
Yeah, exactly.
Rock the Casbah is a fucking awesome song.
Should I stay or should I go? It fucks.
All right. Other punk band, old punk band, Dead Kennedys. I know I referenced them as well, but that's another great listen if you want some classic punk.
The fucking Ramones.
Yeah, the Ramones, as referenced earlier.
Oh, man.
There's some really good punk out there. Sex Pistols kind of like... They're notorious, and they're a great talking point.
Well, they have that fucking thing we've talked about with lots of artists that are controversial. They have that, like, it's weird, like we were talking about Sid Vicious. We hear it out loud how terrible of a person he was, but it's also somewhat, like, it's like folklore, idolized, like fucking...
But it's also before our time, so it's harder. You know, like, it's harder to make it, like, seem as bad as it is.
I don't know how people reacted at the time either, because fucking, like... You know, you think about it now, you hear about it, it's like this, you know, story, oh yeah, he maybe killed his girlfriend. He was in he used to do wild shit on stage. Yeah. Like, it's all kind of like, you know, like I said,
really
like a
folklore. He
folklore.
was the O.J. Simpson of his time.
Yeah, I guess so. You want to put
I
that
bet
way.
he'd hate that I compared him to a black man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, probably. Watch
out, you might get stabbed with an offensive
instead of a fucking Ford Bronco, he drove an Oldsmobile or a fucking a Jaguar.
Okay, so every episode we review the album. We reviewed it on
We review it
on technical, musical, lyrical, album art, reception, and does it hold up? Technical element, okay, taking into account that there was 2 producers and they mixed songs that sound like they were one song. And I didn't know that before doing the research for
Yeah,
this.
that's an interesting fact.
That's an interesting fact, and I think, like, that does bump it up a little bit, but, like, it's still got that, like, gritty fucking sound.
It's raw and it's muddy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's not, I don't think it would sound good if it was crisp, though. If it was, like, you know, perfectly manicured and...
Yeah.
You know, the fact that the noises all kind of, I mean, the drums and the guitar all kind of fucking mushed together on top of the vocals. If it didn't sound that way, it wouldn't be the same album.
No. And you know what's funny is I just realized there's a weird connection to our pod because I went through a big old kick where I was listening to this album and all of the Vidos singles in a playlist in 2019.
Interesting.
And that was like, I would just hit shuffle and fucking...
Interesting combo.
Yeah. Very, very weird combo. But yeah, technically I agree with you. Like, the muddiness adds to it.
Yeah. I don't know where I'd come in at. I think I'll come in like pretty mid. I'll come in like a 7, maybe 7.5. I think 7.5 is fair.
I think 7.5 is fair. I would... Okay, now this is going to be controversial. I'm giving it a 6.5.
Yeah.
I'm gonna... So we're at a 7 right now. Now, musically... Holy fuck. Well, okay. Finding out that Steve Jones basically played all the instruments except for the drums... makes me go, well, Steve Jones is an amazing musician. I think vocally it sounds really good. I do really like Johnny Rotten's voice. I think that if you think of punk, this is kind of the voice that you're imagining.
Well, yeah, I think if you think of 70s punk, I think it's exactly what you'd picture.
Yeah.
Like late 70s punk
And you can hear the same sort of thing done by newer punk acts.
Yeah.
Like, you hear this so much in Billy Joel Armstrong's way that he inflects certain things in his songs, you know?
Yeah, the talky,
you really hear it in the Idols. Like, if you want some British shit, like the Idols, that you hear that influence.
The talky, half singy thing. Is like a mainstay of fucking punk music to this day. I don't know. What are you thinking, Em?
Musically, I'm gonna go with a 6.
I think that's fair. I might go 6.5. I think like there's nothing special really going on. I think it's hard. It's energetic.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of energy put into the music and a lot of energy put into the vocals. But yeah, I think a 6.5 I'm going to go with.
That's totally fair. So right now we're at a 6.75. Lyrically, I will go higher on this because I think that, especially putting into context the time that they were in, having the balls to say fuck the monarchy.
You mean the Bollocks?
The Bollocks?
Having the nutters.
Having the
nutters to say fuck the queen.
Having the nutters to say fuck the queen. But like everything that they're talking about, like honestly, like I listened to the album so fucking much. Like this is I would probably say in at the very least my top 25 albums that I've listened to
the most.
Yeah. And it took me so long to actually listen to the lyrics and have an appreciation for it because I was so caught up on just what it sounded like outside of that, right? Like when I was in high school, for instance, right? But then once I heard the lyrics, I'm like, oh shit, this is angry, but it doesn't feel angry because of how it sounds. Until you really start to pay attention to it. So for that reason, I would probably go with an 8 on this for lyrics.
See, this is like, I listened to the album and I've listened to their tracks, but this was like the first time I actually listened through it intensely and like tried to, pick out things I was liked and disliked. I mean, I'd heard a lot of their famous tracks before. Lyric wise, I didn't really spend a lot of time, like you mentioned, deep diving into it. Like I read over them while I was listening to the track, but it didn't really, click with me the same way. So I might go a 7 on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right now we're at a 7 altogether. Album art, it's nothing really special.
No.
It is recognizable, but only because the words are so fucking big.
Yeah, it's true. What font?
To be honest, this is one of my favorite album arts.
Is it really?
I don't know. It's it's that stripped backness. Like, it's very eye catching. Like, you will double take every time.
And it is bright fucking yellow.
Yeah, it's really cool to me. The different fonts they use, and then just the Sex Pistols.
I think the back looks cooler than the front does. Yeah.
Like, this is an album like you'll double take, and if you're at a record shop, you pick it up and then see the back. Like, this is an album that people will buy just because of that.
I do like that there is 4 different fonts.
Yeah,
on the cover.
Exactly. Like, it's really unique to me. Like, I love this album art because it's so simple, but there's like layers to it.
I would also say because of the amount of times it's been parodied, like it's obviously well known enough.
Like the punk magazines of the like 80s to 90s, like they mimic this. Like this influenced the design of punk for so long.
I'd say a 7. I'm going with a 7.
Yeah, I was gonna smack down right at a 7 too.
All right, so we're at a 7 across the board.
Sorry,
right now.
Sam, you didn't convince
it's okay.
me.
I would rather it be lower because I don't think this album deserves to be much higher than.
I understand it like being a product of its time. Like, this is gonna get into the fucking. Does it hold up?
Let's do reception before we get into it. I feel like we should because I know what you're gonna say and I agree with you on this. So reception. Now, obviously, it was received really well commercially.
Yeah.
But due to the controversy around it, I think that there was a lot that was muddied about it, right?
Yeah.
That being said, that played into how well it was received commercially. I think that it has, like we've mentioned, it has, impacted so many musicians afterwards. And it really, it didn't just affect punk, it also affected metal. Like, this is one of the first albums that is referenced by some of the biggest metal acts of all time. Because it was on that fucking line, because punk up until that point was like very in your face and everything, but it still had kind of a jazzy element to it.
Yeah.
This is aggressive. This is fucking loud and angry.
It was so different than rock that was going on at the time. Like, if you were like in, like, a lot of people were like, popular rock at the time was like prog rock and fucking shit like that. It was not anything close to this. So I mean, if you were into rock music and you were looking for something different, this was the different.
Yeah.
This was the different, that whether or not you were a punk yourself, this was something different. If you were pissed off, a teenager, you were angsty, this was different than anything else you were listening to. You weren't getting fucking pissed off and angry to Steely Dan. You weren't getting fucking pissed off and angry to the Doobie Brothers. This is...
Although I am pissed off and angry that I'm going to miss the Doobie Brothers concert this October.
Why are you going to miss it?
Because I'm going to be in fucking Halifax.
Oh, that's fun.
No, it is actually really
fun. Fucking Halifax is cool.
I am sad, though, because not only are the Doobie Brothers am I missing, I'm also missing Villo Vallo. And apparently the new tour that he's doing... it's all of the hymn musicians that are still playing in it, and so half of the act is his new album and half of it is him's greatest hits. I'm so fucking mad. First time he's here in fucking 12 years and I don't get to see it.
You love him.
I do, and I'm really sorry I got on a tangent.
That's
there,
okay. That's okay. My point was finished. So.
Okay, so reception, I'd say probably 8 out of 10. I would give it an 8 out of 10, so that bumps us to a 7.25 right now. Now, this is the big question, and I'm going to let you go first. Does it hold up?
Well, that's what I was about to get into. I think I don't know if it does the same. I think it's weirdly though, like you two both have a connection to it from high school. I don't. So maybe for you it does hold up. Mm-hmm. I think some of the sound certainly doesn't. I see the influence. I'd say a lot of their influences have held up. The people they've influenced has held up much better than this record itself. But I don't think it holds up. I think they've kind of soiled, this with everything that happened outside the band. They've kind of soiled their, legendary status or whatever it may be. Now they're kind of remembered for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. When you think of the Sex Pistols, you don't often think of the music. When we talked about doing this album, we were all talking about the band. We weren't really talking about the music itself. We were all like, oh yeah, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about the band. We're going to talk about Sid Vicious. We're going to talk about Johnny Rotten. We're going to talk about all the fucking crazy shows and fucking things they did. So it's, I don't know if it holds up. I don't think it does. Personally, I think I can see the influence and I can see how it's been, put up as one of these best albums, but it makes sense why critically it's been dropping ever since its release in the top list. It was in number 3. It was in number 20. It's in, number fucking 9, whatever it is, in the top 100 albums of all time, and it's pushing its way back. So I think influential-wise, I'm sure it, on the bands that came after and loved this album, maybe it holds up for them, but for me personally, no, it doesn't.
It spawned the albums that hold up.
Yeah.
This is an album and a band I loved in high school and then learned more about them and was happy to let go of.
Yeah.
Now, I agree with you, but I also I'm gonna actually I agree with you on some of your points, but I'm gonna disagree with you overall on this. And this is the only time that we've actually disagreed on if something held up. The only reason that I say that is because there's a lot of themes in the album that at the time were super poignant. And we've now seen a resurgence of those same themes, right? We've seen a resurgence of people in the working class or of lesser class talking about the royals and the capitalist fucking nature of society, more so than we had seen in the, I would say 30 years, like the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. There wasn't really as much talk about the fucking despairing difference between the classes, right?
Except for Diana.
Well, I was
let me finish. Let me finish because I agree with you, but that's one part of that's like a blip in the big scheme of things, because in that time we've also got a lot of people that are career politicians whose then kids go into politics, and we have the royal family is now getting talked about a lot more because of Britain's impact on colonizing everywhere else in the world, and how all of these colonized countries are like, hey, why the fuck do we have the queen on our money? What the fuck is with that? So I feel like there's some parts of that do hold up because the themes are carrying true to this day. I would also say, and this is a personal thing, there's some things there's some artists who I won't stream or I won't watch their new shit because I want to separate the art from the artist, right? But not a single dollar from the record that I bought went to Sid Vicious.
It's true.
So I don't really give a fuck in that regard.
That's a good point, yeah.
He's the one that I have the biggest problem with in this whole scenario, right? And I think that's where most people have the biggest problem with is Sid Vicious. So, and also considering he only played bass with them live, really, it was all Glenn Matlock's fucking writing and bass, and Steve Jones playing the bass and everything. So I'm able to separate that, because it's kind of like, okay, say me as a comedian, if I had, hypothetical situation, one of my fraternity brothers goes and commits a mass murder.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that if I had a joke or a story in my act that had mentioned that person, does that mean that I also need to be canceled because of the fact that they did something?
Are you mentioning him by name and not addressing the issue? Or would you, if this happened, would you then just be like my fraternity brother and not mention by name?
Well, no, I mean, if it happened, it would be obvious who it is, like, because it would be in the news and everything.
I don't know.
But you're talking about the joke. That's what I'm referencing. Like, if you had this joke beforehand and then this all happened, would you still use the joke with his name, or would you change it to just reference your fraternity brother?
But here's the thing: if it's okay, because there's two things about that. Nothing in, like, okay, so how do I explain this? I feel like if I'm referencing them by name, which I never do with anybody in my act,
exactly,
then it would be like a one-off. But the same reasoning then is holding true in my opinion. Like, logically, I can see, like, okay, if I did nothing wrong, and if I did nothing wrong and that person was not directly actually creating the art with me, does it really make a difference in the grand scheme of things?
I feel like that's a bit of a stretch, I get the analogy.
I think it's different because he's
a face.
He's a face. He's the face of the band.
Yeah.
When you think of the Sex Pistols, like we said earlier, we're only talking about Johnny Rotten. We're only talking about Sid Vicious.
Yeah.
So that's who you think of when you think of the band.
And I do agree with you.
Yeah.
But I also think that it is funny that we associate the Sex Pistols with Sid Vicious, or Sid Vicious with the Sex Pistols, but he wasn't actually, like, fucking doing anything.
Yeah,
no.
If we could have a whole cultural change about this band, I would say this album holds up, but that's not happening.
One thing I wanted to mention too, you were talking about the talking from, like, the working class perspective, and not so much the monarchy part you were talking about, but I mean, they weren't the first people to do that either.
No,
there was the singer-songwriters of the 60s, and then there was
Johnny Cash. There was
country singers in the 50s.
Surface level on a lot of those issues, and it spawned the better album.
But I think like we talked about earlier, where they shine is their energy. That's where it makes a difference. It's not so much a lyrical thing. It's not so much a content thing of what they're saying. It's the raw roughness, the gruffness, the energy.
Yeah. I listen to this album because of the sound itself.
Yeah, it screams, I don't give a fuck, and it's in your face about it. That's why people liked it. That's why people related to it.
Yeah.
I think it's different than, like, it's not about the content. Yeah, you can look at the lyrics and you can say, okay, yeah, he's talking about this, talking about that, but that's not why it connected with people.
No.
It connected with people because it's rough, it's raw, it's straight to the point, it's in your face, and it peaked at the right time in culture, and right time where punk was just coming up. It was different than the punk that was coming from New York. I mean, the punk that was coming from New York, yeah, it was loud and it was in your face, but it also, like you said, it was based in some, you could see the roots from other musical styles. It wasn't, as raw and rough around the edges where this was different.
The California punk was even fucking less raw and rough around the edges than any of it.
And I feel like why it did so well in the UK compared to the US, because things were different. Yeah, and that's why it hit so much harder for them. It was at number one. It was at 106 in the US. Yeah. So it's I think that's more where it shines through. It's not a lyrical thing. It's not a content thing. It's the music and the sound and the energy.
Yeah.
People were going through some shit at that time in the UK, and this band let them let loose.
Well, I think maybe I'll change what I said. I think the energy and that all holds up. Like, I won't say the album and the sound, like, something I'd listen to or go back to, but I think, like, that sort of raw and, like, fucking fuck you sort of thing, like, even, like, our conversation yesterday, like, just being around young people our age are fucking mad. They're mad about the way the world is. They're mad about how things are right now. Yeah. That energy reigns true. That holds up. That holds up, so.
That's where I go back to, like, I'm fine with letting go of this album for better modern ones.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I fucking won't. I'm holding true. It holds up in my book.
Well, that's why it's great to have a different opinion.
I will listen to this still once a month, probably.
Nice.
That's honest to God, I probably do listen to it once a month. Okay, so then that's a 7.25 out of 10.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's pretty fair. All right, so that's been another episode of Misfits on
Fuck yeah, man.
All right, it's good to be back.
It's good to be back.
And, yeah.
That was 2 long ones.
Anal contusions.